You might disagree, but I don't believe Spider-Man 2 lived up to the hype. Yes, it was a great game, but the question still stands. Was it worth it? Let's find out. Welcome back, Stormtroopers. Today we have another great and amazing video. Today I'm going to be reviewing Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, the gameplay, the story, and the overall structure of the game, and break down everything that I liked and didn't like, and whether or not it was actually worth the hype. But before we get started, don't forget to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe so that way you know every time I happen to upload a video. And for the record, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you might want to go ahead and check out the link below to my Twitch channel because I'm probably live right now. Before we actually get started, for anybody that has not played Spider-Man 2 yet or has not beaten the game, spoiler warning. Don't get mad at me, get mad at yourself if you continue. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the video. So first and foremost, before anybody starts throwing a lot of hate and vitriol and then slamming that dislike button, I want to say this: the game is still good. I thoroughly enjoyed the entirety of Insomniac's Spider-Man 2. I do want that to be known. But there were plenty of things that I did not like and which ended up making me not like the game as a whole. So let's get started with the story and then we're going to do the gameplay a little bit later. So as far as the story for Spider-Man 2, I thoroughly enjoyed how it was structured. I actually enjoyed the interactions between Peter and Miles. I like the fact that you were able to play as both Peter and Miles. I feel like that was definitely a plus for this game. Now, obviously, that was going to happen because Spider-Man 2 and all, but still, I thoroughly enjoyed the addition of both the Spider-Man in this game. And the simple way that they were able to weave the story between the two, where naturally you were going from one Spider-Man to the next, because even though there was a feature to switch between Spider-Mans whenever you wanted, I didn't actually do that much. I actually played the story as they gave it to me. When they wanted me to play as Miles, I ended up playing as Miles. When they wanted me to play as Peter, I ended up playing as Peter. What I also liked about the dynamic between the two Spider-Man is that Insomniac didn't rely solely on one Spider-Man over the other. One of my fears going into this game was that Miles was going to kind of be a sidekick almost, and realistically he wasn't. He was more or less just as a main character as Peter was, and that was a phenomenal thing to do, and I really appreciate them for doing that. And one of the main things that I really enjoyed about playing as both Spider-Men is the fact that they made both of their stories feel really real and grounded. Like with Peter, for instance, in the beginning of the game, you sit there and go through Aunt May's house, which is now Peter's, and you're actually seeing all of Peter's bills and everything, something similar to the beginning of the last game. But when you end up seeing that $4,000 mortgage, you know, things is getting real, because look at real life right now. And you actually get to see a lot of that play throughout the story with him and his dynamic between him and Mary Jane, especially when she ends up getting some of the symbiote on her and she's throwing all that hatred towards Peter. And you can really tell that that's getting to him because he actually feels that way himself, and you can tell that. And then on the Miles side of things, Miles is starting to try and balance the life between Spider-Man and real life. He's finding it hard to do so. For one, he's trying to go to school, he's trying to keep up with his friends, his new girlfriend, and being Spider-Man. And clearly for someone his age, it's very hard to do that. And I'm really glad that they found the balance to be able to tell both stories at the same time. Another thing that I thoroughly enjoyed is the whole Venom section. Now, for those that don't know, yes, Harry Osborn was Venom in this game. Now, the way that they actually did that was for one, you were allowed to actually play as Venom for a specific mission, and then you went on to actually fight him and do a whole bunch of other things. I do feel like the Venom story was well told. I was actually afraid of the fact that Harry was going to be Venom because we knew that from the ending of the last game. And then the road that Harry actually took to become Venom was a whole nother web of shadows. For real, for one, when Harry first come back, everybody's happy to see Harry again. You end up going to the amusement park and just having so much fun with him. And then you just find out that Harry is Venom out of nowhere. And then you actually get to go on a couple missions with him until the fact that Kraven ends up almost killing Peter. And then the symbiote ends up jumping on to Peter, and that's how we get the black suited Spider-Man. Which the part of the game where you actually get to play as black suited Spider-Man was a whole nother thing. For one, as we all know, it really makes Peter really aggressive. So in the beginning, yes, Peter was still his normal self, but as time went on, he got more and more and more aggressive. By the end of the whole black suited saga within the game, Peter was just not coherent. Peter was not listening. He was simply an animal. All he wanted to do was fight and be a better Spider-Man, as he thought. But really, that was the symbiote speaking to him. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed all of that. And then towards the end of the game, where you end up fighting Venom, and then Harry ends up going into a coma because you actually obviously beat Venom, that was very well done. Because I was actually under the impression that Harry was going to end up dying somehow. But I'm glad he did. And what's cool about this is that because Harry went into a coma, now Norman is actually very mad, and he's trying to find ways to revive Harry, which I feel like is going to lead into the third Spider-Man game, where the big bad villain is Green Goblin, i.e. Norman Osborn. Unless they end up throwing another curveball and Green Goblin's not Norman, but hey, who knows? Either way, I feel like Insomniac hit a home run with the story. They did a phenomenal job, and I commend them on that. Now let's get into everything I actually didn't like about the story. For one, it was just too short for me. I know that's just a simple gripe, but I love longer games. Now, yes, you can sit here and say that sometimes when companies make longer games, they end up just adding a bunch of padding into the game, and all the middle stuff is actually really boring and just did not need to be there. But when games are long and they're still good, they are like chef's kiss, and it's beautiful. And I really wish there was at least another like 10 hours onto this game, because for me, most of the game was filled up with some stuff I'm going to get into later in the next part of the video. But again, it just didn't feel long enough, especially the story. If you just play the story, you can literally get through the story in just a couple of hours. And I just did not like that. I don't like short games. I want to actually spend some time to actually play them. Yes, shorter games are better for, people my age with families and work and everything. But when I have time to play the game, I have time to play the game. And I want it to take a long time. So again, it was just too short for me. Could have been a little bit longer. Now, another thing that I didn't like is the Mary Jane missions. Now, before you get into the comments and start saying, oh, why didn't you like the Mary Jane missions? They were better this time around. Oh, you just don't like, Mary Jane or anything like that. No, that's not it. That's not it at all. I didn't like the Mary Jane missions because they were just as boring as the first game. Now, Insomniac knew that people did not like the Mary Jane missions from the first game. For one, they felt out of place. You're Spider-Man. You're supposed to be Spider-Man in a Spider-Man game. So why is Mary Jane here? That's my whole gripe. But again, here they come throwing in more Mary Jane missions, and then for them to just sit there and in the story, it's just, told to you that she trained with Silver Sable and now she's, some high-class warrior or whatever the case may be. I don't buy it. I'm not saying that she can't train with Silver Sable. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just thinking that that's just a cop-out answer just to have more Mary Jane missions. And then on top of the fact, she doesn't really do much different, right? The only thing now is that she has a stun gun, and then she randomly finds one of Peter's old web shooters and she adds that to the stun gun, and that's it. And on top of that, I'm still trying to figure out how some simple training with Silver Sable gives Mary Jane some type of third sense where she can see enemies through walls. Mary Jane is just a regular human being just like the rest of us. I don't understand that whatsoever. I don't understand how a little bit of training. When I go to the gym, I'm not coming home with some third sense where I can see somebody trying to do something on the other side of the wall. No, it just doesn't make sense to me. And again, they were just as immersion breaking and boring as the first game. And I thoroughly hope that they dial them down. Now, yes, I do understand that there weren't as many of them in this game. They weren't as egregious. I get that. But still, the fact that you are just thrown a MJ mission out of nowhere, because if I'm not mistaken, there are 4 in this game. There are 4 separate MJ missions in this game. Because again, I'm playing this game to be Spider-Man, not Mary Jane Watson. The game's not called Marvel's Mary Jane Watson. The game's called Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Not Spider-Man and Mary Jane. The game's called Marvel's Spider-Man. But I digress. Besides those 2 things, the story didn't really bother me at all. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing was I didn't like how short it was, and I still didn't like the fact that Mary Jane missions are still here. Now, I do understand, coming from interviews from the developers, that Mary Jane is more than likely here to stay, but please, for the love of God, do something else with her. please. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. So as far as gameplay is concerned, I thoroughly enjoyed this game over Spider-Man PS4 or Spider-Man Remastered, if you will. The traversal in this game is literally chef's kiss. The movement between buildings just swinging, and then the fact that you have web wings now is a godsend. And the fact that there are things like wind tunnels and vents that actually boost you in the air when you're actually using your web wings is a whole nother can of worms, because the web wings themselves was just a phenomenal addition. I really love the ability that I could just potentially fly around the entire city if I wanted to. If you know what you're doing, you could pretty much fly around the entire city. But again, movement in and of itself is turned up times 10 in this game. You are so much faster in this game than you were Spider-Man PS4. Something else that I actually enjoyed that they added was fall damage and less web swinging assistance. So because of those additions, it actually makes it a little bit harder to get around the city when you're trying to web swing and whatnot. You really need to know what you're doing when it comes to web swinging, because if not, you're either going to end up running into a building or just face planting on the side of some building or on the concrete itself. Other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed combat in this game as well. Combat has been slightly improved. It's pretty much some of the same stuff, but again, combat has been slightly improved with the addition of sometimes when you go into a random crime mission or whatever the case may be, the other Spider-Man is there already, or sometimes they just come out of nowhere and start helping. I actually thought that was kind of a great idea, even though sometimes it seems as if it doesn't really make sense, especially if you just got off the phone with them and they're supposed to be doing something else on the other side of the city, and all of a sudden they're right there with you. That kind of threw me off a bit, but I ended up looking past that most of the time because I actually enjoyed it. And then a lot of the finishers with Peter and Miles, it was just so good, especially when they ended up doing the classic pointing to each other. I thought that was so good. Now let's get into everything I didn't like about the gameplay. And there were definitely some things I didn't like. So first, let's get into the less egregious thing. As far as stealth goes in this game, and obviously when it comes to Spider-Man games, there has to be some form of stealth mechanics. I feel like stealth suffered a little bit with some of the changes that they made to this game, because for one, there are less gadgets in this game, which I actually kind of like that there were less gadgets, because there wasn't so much stuff to sit there and try and think about when you're going through different things. It was more focused oriented, but that hurt the stealth mechanics. The only thing that I felt made stealth a little bit better is actually the web lines that they actually made, where you can actually shoot a web, have it stick there, and you can use it as like a beam to walk across on. I thought that was okay, but in the end, there just were less stealth mechanics, because there were less instances where you could really be stealthy, and it just hurt the game. I genuinely feel that they wanted you to be more in combat more than anything in this game, and that's perfectly fine, but there are going to be people like myself that actually want to just sit there and take them all out without being seen. So in the next Spider-Man game, if you could specifically add some gadgets that are specifically designed for stealth, or just add old ones back from the first Spider-Man game that are specifically designed for stealth, that would be amazing. Another thing that I didn't like is the whole open world aspect. Now, let me preface this. I understand this is a Spider-Man game, an Insomniac Spider-Man game, so it has to be open world to some extent. That's not what I'm saying. When I mean the open world aspect of this game, I mean the things that tend to bring open world games down literally all the time. And some of the things that actually were in the last game that I didn't necessarily enjoy, especially after I 100%ed the last game. So if you don't already know what I'm talking about, all of the busy work, the things that kept you playing the game essentially. Yes, a lot of these side missions and whatnot in each borough, yes, they were there to add to the story in a sense, because they were able to weave a lot of that stuff and a lot of the meaning behind doing some of these things into the story, especially for each Spider-Man. Like with Miles, he specifically had some stuff to do for his uncle, and vice versa. There were some things specifically for Peter as well. And there were things for both of them to do. But at the same time, a lot of that stuff is just busy work. When you take a step back and actually look at it, it doesn't really have any meaning to it. It's just there to fill the world with stuff to do. And that to me is very annoying, when there could have been other things that could have been added. Like, we're a superhero. Why not add instances where we're literally saving people? Like, yes, there are random crime moments, but those tend to get really repetitive because there's only a handful of the same ones. And the only time that they end up being a little different is when you get to the part of the game where the symbiote comes in. At that point, some of those random crime missions will have random symbiotes popping up. And yeah, that mixes it up a little bit. But again, they're still the same exact crime missions. It gets really annoying. And I do understand that this is just a trope of open world games, but it doesn't escape the fact that they're just busy work and it's just there to make the game longer. As I said earlier in the video with the length of the game and the length of the story, the only reason it's that long is because of all the busy work that you have. That's literally the only reason that it's that long. A lot of this stuff did not need to be in the game, and that definitely hurt my viewpoint of this game. Now, one of the last things that I did not like about the whole gameplay structure of the game is the fact that and I don't know about anybody else, I personally feel like this game was very buggy. This game is the buggiest Spider-Man game that they have released so far. I personally did not experience any bugs in Miles Morales or Spider-Man PS4. I didn't experience bugs at all in either of those games. And that just could be my luck of the draw. But it doesn't escape the fact that for my experience for this game, it was very bugged. Not only did I experience a lot of clipping or a lot of instances where enemies just weren't doing the things they were supposed to, it was just really weird at times. One of the most egregious bugs that I continuously experienced, a lot of the times when I would be swinging through the city to my next mission or to the next thing that I wanted to do, sometimes the sound would just completely go away. And maybe I'm tripping, I don't know.
Sandman saying he thought he was gonna get powers from it. Wow! And to think I was nervous about telling him.
Can't look at it just one way.
Friends tell each other the truth.
Walk in my apartment door.
Weird.
For a few days.
It's like the acoustics, it's like I'm only hearing voices. When the sound completely goes away and the only thing that you hear is random NPC chatter and dialogue, it's very weird. You don't even hear Peter or Miles just swinging through the city anymore. The sound is just gone. And the way the actual sound is designed in this game, where things like NPC chatter is supposed to be muffled a little bit so it can actually sound like it's a city, and then all the other sounds are cut out and all you hear is the muffled NPC chatter, is very weird.
I know people think it's ugly, right? But I honestly like all the scaffolding up around my building. It keeps me dry when I have to walk fluffy in the rain.
And I got this bug a lot. I want to say during my first couple of hours of playthrough, I at least got this bug 2 to 3 times. And throughout my entire playthrough, I want to say a good 10 times. It was a very common bug that I got. And it got to the point where I just got used to it. Whenever it happened, all I did was just restart the game and then boom. I ended up having a couple of different crashes of the game, and even points to where when I got to new parts of the game where they were trying to teach me a new move or something and it's telling me to press X to continue, I'm pressing X and it's not continuing. I don't understand what was happening. And it wasn't the fact that the game was frozen or that the system froze, because I could literally press the home button on my PlayStation or, have other sounds from the game still going, but I couldn't press X to continue. So a lot of the game for me was just very buggy, and I just did not like that. I feel like this game could have used a couple more months in development to hammer out some of these bugs, because this is one of those things to where all or most games that come out now are very buggy. Even though this year was probably one of the better years for video games as of late, especially with the quality of games and the actual releases of these games, this is definitely one of those games that can be considered one of the buggier games of this year. Now, was it as bad as something like Star Wars Jedi Survivor? No, but it was damn near close, at least for me. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I'm not sitting here trying to hate on Spider-Man 2 or anything of that nature. I did thoroughly enjoy this game. I just feel like Insomniac as a whole played this game way too safe. It was literally more of the same and just sprinkled little bits of new stuff here and there. Not saying that that's a bad thing at all, because definitely some sequels don't need some drastic changes. But again, I just feel like they played it too safe when I know that they are capable of so much more. And sadly, I do feel like this is a basic sequel. Now, you may think I'm wrong or hate me for saying that, but it is what it is. It's just a basic sequel, especially with all the things that I explained to you here in the video. Here's my final score for this game. It's going to end up being an 8 out of 10. Now, some of you may have given it a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, but I can't do that based off of all the things that I saw. I was close to giving it like a 7.5, especially because of all the bugs that I experienced. But I know that everybody didn't experience bugs, especially not to the point that I experienced them. So with that being said, again, I feel like the 8 out of 10 is definitely deserved. With that being said, in the comment section below, let me know what you liked about Spider-Man 2 and what you didn't like. And then don't forget to go ahead and like and share this video out to all your friends, and subscribe, and then ring the bell to receive notifications so that way you know every time NerdStorm happens to upload a new video. And then, like I said earlier in the video, I'm probably streaming right now as we speak. That is twitch.tv/NerdStorm92. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as long as my real job allows me to. With that being said, Stormtroopers, I will catch you in the next video. NerdStorm out.